So what I'm going to do today is I've tried to really slim down my presentation on the Morgellons and Lyme protocol. So we're sticking to the key points. I'm not going to cover the graded protocol today. We're just going to look at like the classic one, so to speak, and trying to get you to understand what the process is about and how you can do it yourself, which should hopefully make it easier for you when you're, looking at the timetable, when you're looking at the software screen and you're having one of those moments of, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to think. So let's get on with it. Firstly, what is it? It's not specific. Well, it is specifically for people who have Morgellons and Lyme, but it's also good for those people who want to do, let's say, an annual pathogen cleanse and wants to cut down on some nasties and try and work out how they could just like make their physical and mental and emotional state better as a result of reducing nasties within the body, which personal experience suggests that Spooky 2 is very good at. So it's more than just something specifically for Morgellons and Lyme. And sometimes you can actually recommend going through, let's say, the terrain and the organism phase, which I'll cover shortly, for somebody else if they, just want to improve their general well-being. Okay, how can it be delivered to the body? Essentially through nearly any method which Spooky 2 offers. All right, if you're dealing with complicated pathogens within the body, you're going to want to try and focus on contact and plasma. You can use scalar as well, but scalar is a much more of a tissue healing tool. So I would suggest you actually deliver the frequency through plasma and through contacts to try and do the most good. We also use remote support for people who are using both contact or plasma, because that will help to reduce the doubling time of any pathogens inside your body, because it still gives you a weaker dose of frequencies when you're out and about and you're doing things in your day-to-day life and you're not sitting beside your plasma bulb or being connected via contact pads to the frequency generator itself. But essentially, you can think about it in terms of the quality of technology you've got, the quantity of technology you've got, the type of, the things you've got available, and you can work out a protocol based upon that, taking into account what I'm going to discuss with you today. So the Morgellons and Lyme protocol is very good for people who need to focus on the golden rule of rifing, okay? Because it starts with the smallest pathogens and then works up. If you read the book by Hulda Clark, she suggested that you need to kill off the pathogens inside the larger pathogens first, and then you can kill off the larger pathogens, which is still inside the even bigger pathogens, and then you kill off the even bigger pathogens after that. And that's very similar to what the Morgellons and Lyme protocol is about, but it's very specific and targeted to the individual specific pathogen groups, which will probably be dominating your body. So some people require the golden rule of rifing, some people don't. You've got to understand your condition, what pathogens you've got, and carry on working to the best of your ability. If you're unsure, it's quite good to use the Morgellons and Lyme protocol anyway. So it's split up into 3 different sections. Firstly, it's got its own terrain phase. Now, the word terrain means landscape, the landscape of the body. And it's the landscape of the body associated with your detoxification pathways. It is understood within rifing that if you clear up your organs of elimination first, you can then have a much better experience when using rife frequency therapy. So that's why it has its own terrain phase. Now, if you've done the ordinary terrain phase from the detox folder, then you will not need to do the terrain phase of the Morgellons and Lyme protocol, because you've already done terrain, okay? If you haven't done terrain, then you might as well just start from the beginning and go through it step by step, okay? After terrain, which is when you've prepared the body for the rifing, you then go on to the organisms phase. Now, you can see the list that's there. The very first thing that's mentioned is viruses. You can put the cursor there, viruses. They're very small. And then towards the end of the list, you've got simple and complex parasites. Okay, so it's working from the tiniest organisms to the larger organisms step by step. Then after that phase, there's something called Morgellons infrastructure, which deals with issues such as biotech and also just healing for the body. There are also extra Herxheimer helper sets, which you can run. On the basis you get a Herxheimer reaction, which is when you feel worse or more toxic before you feel better. So that can be something which is a useful part of your armory to use as and when during the protocol. But if you do get a bad Herxheimer reaction, it's okay to stop, run your Herxheimer helpers, do that for a couple of days, and then get back into the saddle and carry on with the protocol. It's perfectly okay to do that, or indeed to run the Herxheimer helpers at the same time as doing other things, let's say on remotes. All right, as I say, it should be noticed that the entire protocol from start to finish is there to help with a parasite cleansing and to work specifically on the organisms in question. If you're just focusing your attention on pathogen reduction, then terrain followed by organism phase could just be enough for what you require. Okay, let's just talk about contacts. I mean, setting up your contact generators is relatively simple. You attach the USB cable to the back of your computer where you got the USB socket. You then plug the cable into the generator itself. And you then put the black unit, which has the two outputs, which go onto the generator, essentially onto your output 1 and output 2 of the generator. And then you can connect the contact cable, which is either connected to the colloidal silver port or the high power port. I'll show you a picture of that in a moment. We typically use the high power port. Then if that's too much for you, you can switch to colloidal silver. Some of the frequencies within the Morgellons Online protocol for contact are very low. And that means that you will feel some, bzz, shaking and juddering, okay? But that will pass, or you'll get used to it, or essentially you just go down to a lower level on the amplitude settings in the software to help reduce the power for overnight contact sessions, for instance. Okay. As I say, the colloidal silver port is there for you to use if required. Now, on your screen, you should be able to see some of the contact accessories. And on the top left, which I've decided to make bigger than all the other contact accessories, is the boost unit. You should be able to see that the second terminal in from the left is for high power contact. And the one which is second in from the right is called colloidal silver. So those two ones there are the ones you tend to use. All right, you don't use the others. You don't use the output 1 or the output 2 specifically for Morgellons Online protocol on contact. And yes, it can be done via the contact hand cylinders. It can be done via TENS pads, or it could be done using the socks, the gloves, and the ankle and wristbands, which are also available for Spooky 2 in the form of conductive fabric. I've also shown you an image here of the pulse unit, which is necessary for those of you who aren't using Generator X Pro and are still using the XM generators. Setting up the remote is easy. Attach the boost, which is the big black thing there, okay, to the generator's output 1 and output 2, just as you do for contact mode. Then you plug the remote unit, which is the small black device which can fit onto the boost unit, onto the BN socket. Then you need to put your sample of DNA in the remote. I tend to wrap mine in microporous tape or a paper label, so it keeps the remote clean. And it also means you can label the DNA. For instance, if you're treating more than one person, you can write their name on the paper so that you can remove it if they get a Herx from taking remotes. There you got a picture of a remote unit. And to the right there, you got a picture of the Generator X with the remote units attached. And that's on the lower BN terminal. Okay. So you should be able to understand how to set up contact, relatively easy, and how to set up remotes. Now with Plasma, using Spooky Central, you have to plug the Plasma unit into the generator itself. And I don't tend to use the boost with that at all. There are cables which have a coil filter on them, and those are attached to nearest the generator. And then you attach the other ends to the Spooky Central unit. The cables are actually labeled, and there's also colored flashes on the generators. If you look closely on your XM generator, you'll see that on output 1, there's a little red flash, and output 2 has a little blue flash. And the labels which will appear and be on the cables, one will be red and one will be blue. So it tells you straight out through color coding which one is which. But essentially the output 1 on your generator is connected to the input on the front of the Spooky Central unit, and output 2 goes onto the modulation socket on the Spooky Central unit. But as I say, there's the color labels are there to help you. One will be labeled as modulation, one will be labeled as input, and the other ends will be labeled output 1 and output 2 when you get your Spooky Central unit. So it already makes it a lot easier for you to work out what goes where. Then the tube itself, either the Fanatron bulb or the straight tube, has to be connected at the back in the white sockets that protrude. Okay, then at the front of your Spooky Central unit, you can then plug the other fun things. The ultrasonic wand, which you use without the cap on its end, either goes up your armpit or between genitals and anus when you're lying in bed. Its job is to enhance the power of the plasma killing and provide extra frequency therapy to the body to make the plasma work even more powerful. There is also a contacts socket at the front of the Spooky Central unit, which you can use to put a special high voltage micropulse through your body from your right wrist to your left ankle, okay, which also opens up the body and opens up the cells for the therapy coming from the plasma bulb. So that's a very useful way of doing it. The PEMF wand helps focus the energy of the plasma on a specific site of the body, which is used more in the case of localized cancers. But if you're doing whole body work, you would not need to use the PEMF, but you might want to use both the contact and the ultrasonic wand, as well as using the plasma simultaneously in order to get more benefit from it. That's on the basis that you're using Spooky Central and you want to use it to the maximum for the purposes of getting rid of all of the nasties in your body. But now it's a question of how do you run the actual protocol itself? And the short answer is in sequence. There is a timetable which explains to you which particular chains to run and for what duration. Okay, so you go to Morgellons and Lyme and then click on Morgellons and Lyme v3.0. That takes you to this page, and then you have to click on that PDF in order to access the actual timetable, which gives you essentially the instructions broken down into how to do it. On page 2 of the guide, you'll see that the protocol is broken down into different methods based upon the equipment that you've got or are planning to get. And each method has its own timetable, so you know which particular sets to run and for how long. So one of them is called Plasma Plus, the other is called Scalar Plus, the other one is called Contact Plus 4, and the other one's Contact Plus 2. But there's also a remote method, A and B. Now, the remote method, maybe you want to use it if you've really got no choice. But if you want to have more power, then contact and plasma is essentially the best way to go. Scalar, I'm sure, is also good, but if you want to do a lot of killing, then contact or plasma is essentially where you should be focusing in a lot of your efforts, in my humble opinion, based upon my own personal experiences. I have actually gone through the Morgellons and Lyme protocol a couple of times myself. Okay. Then there's the issue of how long does it take? I know that every single person out there is looking for a miracle like right now, but real life doesn't always work like that. You know, these things take time, and we're talking about healing using frequency, not pharmaceuticals. So it will depend upon the equipment that you have. And also depends upon, you know, the method that you use. And don't let the duration put you off at all. All forms of healing require, you know, cleanses of various different types and regularly reducing pathogens in general. It's just a general healthy way of doing life. But it makes much more sense if you have more and better equipment, you'll be able to achieve results faster. So if we were thinking about the kit which incorporates one Generator X Pro and one XM generator and either uses scalar or plasma, you're talking about 5 months and 4 days to complete one run through. And if you got a bad body, you might want to repeat the protocol again and again and again. I have known some people to repeat the entire protocol 6 times. Okay, but it's still 5 months and 4 days to go through one run through of the Morgellons Online protocol using Generator X Pro and one XM generator using scalar or plasma. The Contact Plus 4 method uses 4 XM generators, or obviously 2 Generator X's, or 1 Generator X and 2 XM generators. Either way, you're using 4 generators. Remembering, of course, that Generator X has 2 generators within it, okay? Either way, you'll be using 1 generator for the contact mode and scanning, and the other 3 for remote usage, as well as using the the contact accessories and so on and so forth to go with the generators. You're talking about 7 months and 18 days. That's contact method with 4 generators, including the remote benefit. Obviously, a benefit is it's cheaper for yourself than the plasma or scalar protocol, but it still takes a bit of time. Now, if you're just using 2 XM generators or 1 Generator X, you can probably see it's going to take a bit longer. We're talking about 10 months and 8 days in order to run through Contact Plus 2. Again, don't let the timing put you off. If you've only got 2 generators or you've only got 1 Generator X, then it's worthwhile doing the whole thing anyway. Okay, it's worthwhile getting through it. But remember, if you only wanted to achieve a parasite cleanse, namely to go through terrain and the organism phase, you can do one run through of just terrain and organism section, and that will only be 15 weeks. So if you're just reducing pathogens, 15 weeks with 2 generators on contact mode. Then there's the method of remote method A with either 2 or 4 XM generators. That can take 10 months and 23 days just to go through the parasite cleanse method. If you wanted to do the whole thing, we're talking about 16 months for remote method A. Remote method B, which requires 4 XM generators, or of course 2 Generator X's, or 1 Generator X and 2 XM generators. And if you are moving seamlessly from one preset to another, we're talking about 5 months and 23 days to complete the entire protocol from beginning to end. And only a little over half that to achieve the parasite cleanse effect up to the 51st preset. So method A is much slower, and that requires your 2 to 4 generators. Method B, which requires 4 generators, is essentially quicker, but it's still a remote method, and so its mode of operation would be in accordance with what remote can do, as opposed to what plasma and contact could also do for you. So when you're thinking about going through Morgellons and Lyme, think carefully about what it is you want to achieve, how quickly you want to achieve it, whether you're just going through parasite cleanse or whether you're going for an ideal complete treatment for your Morgellons and Lyme illness. Okay, don't allow the duration put you off. It becomes, we're talking about healing here. It therefore becomes a lifestyle. And if you're already doing something else from the doctor, such as pharmacological medicines, herbal protocols, diet, nutrition, cleanses, fasts, or anything else which the wonderful world of complementary health can provide you with, there could always be some pathogens that are being missed by the existing treatments, and it could have a role to play in your state of unwellness. Typically speaking, the more things you do for your wellness, the more of a likelihood there will be of your progress in terms of health and well-being. So on top of everything else you're already doing that the doctors told you to do, maybe the Morgellons and Lyme protocol could, be of use to yourself and help you on your journey to well-being. Now, if you are using 2 generators or you're using 4 generators or whatever, there is this USB bar, which is being provided by Spooky2, which is worthwhile getting because it provides much more stability and control than a regular USB bar would be able to achieve. So that's something to bear in mind when you're thinking about, accumulating equipment for yourself. So now we're going to get on to what the timetable in the instructions is actually about. Okay. The rows horizontally signify what is to be done on a particular day or night. The columns show which generator should be used doing what. So you have to have a good idea as to which generator is essentially doing what. I will show you the software and show you what I mean shortly. There will be an X2 in red, which would refer to 2 days or nights. Okay, so that's 2 24-hour periods. The letter P, as in P01, refers to the use of plasma. The R means remote. And then, of course, there's S for scalar, C for contact, and SC for scalar. Okay. So here we have the part of the terrain from the contact method, which requires 4 generators. So you can see on the far left-hand side, each one of these sections you're running for 2 24-hour periods, because we got the red X2 on the left-hand side. Your first generator will be dedicated to contact and all the rest of them to remote. And it tells you which particular frequency set or chain is being used. Okay, there's contact 01, metals and chemicals. And when you're not connecting generator 1 to your body through contact, you switch the same generator onto the remote equivalent, R01, metals and chemicals. Generator 2, which will be the next generator you're using, you run R01. Generator 3, you run R01. Generator 4, R01, the letter R standing for remote, and 01 being the first preset chain within the Morgellons and Lime protocol folder. Okay. Second stage is the second 2 24-hour period, which has the system detox and remote version, as you can see. And same for CO3 on the next day and CO4 on the next day. Does that make sense? I hope it does. All right, now I'm showing you essentially the same thing, but for the 2 generator method. This is still the part of the terrain. It uses contact and remote methods, as you can see. All right, you got the letter C, metals and chemicals, DB, and R01, and R01 on generator 2. But this time it is for 4 days and 4 nights, or 4 nights, or 4 24-hour periods, I should say, because it's up to you what time of day you do this, whether it's overnight when you're in bed, or whether you're doing this in the morning and in the evening, or whether you're doing 1 session during the day and you're doing 1 session during the night. It's up to you to work that out for yourself, taking into account your schedule. So on the left-hand side, number of 24-hour periods. Then we can see in black ink there in the first column, contact sessions. In blue ink on the first column, the remote usage on the same generator, we're not using contact. So you just switch it over, okay, onto remote. And your generator 2 can be perpetually for the first 4 days running R01, for 4 days running R02, for 4 days running R03, and for 4 days running R04. Does that make sense? Okay. To actually get to the presets, this is where you go. From the very start menu, which if you're not already on the start menu, you can click on the double chevron or on the little house key to bring you back to the first page, okay? And you just click on Morgellons and Lime, then you click on Morgellons and Lime 3 version 3.0, and that's what takes you there. Then you have to click the method of delivery which you're using for that one particular generator. So I'll show you in this particular case as if it was done in contact method on a generator. But I've also highlighted remote because you'll be clicking on that to run your remote generators. Then select the program you want to run from the timetable. It'll say it's on the timetable. You look it up within this folder here, okay? when you're on the 5th protocol, I think, the 5th, oops, let's go back one. When you're on the 5th preset, you will have to edit it and add your scan results. Now, on the bottom of this page, you'll see there's a placeholder which says your scan results brackets CUST brackets. What we're going to do is we're going to remove that and add our own biofeedback. So you'll be taking your biofeedbacks on a regular basis, maybe once every 2 days, once every 4 days, or maybe twice a week. And you'll be adding the results into your protocol itself. So once you've done what I've already shown you in the presets tab, we then move over to the programs tab, which will have in the box at the bottom called loaded programs, the entire preset chain. And you can then click on your a biofeedback, which you have chosen to put into it. And it will then appear at the bottom of the chain of presets. You may then double click on your scan results brackets CUST brackets, and it will disappear. And you can then move your biofeedback using the blue arrows up or down into the place where your scan results was. Okay, so those are the blue arrows on the right-hand side. You can see them there. I've clicked on it once, it's gone blue. I can then use the arrows and I can move it up and down as I see fit. Then you can go onto the settings tab, and there's a bit of a debate about using harmonic wobbles. Some people prefer to use them, some people don't. If you click on that particular down arrow there, you'll have lots of different options, including feathering and wobbles. Personal experience seems to suggest that when tackling worms, wobbles are more effective than feathering. But when tackling microbes such as yeast, candida, mold, and fungus, feathering seems to be much more effective than wobbles. Some people don't use it at all and hope that the pure frequency will actually do the work. Once you've finished on the settings page, you click on the control tab. You can then click override generator, which is clicked first. Then you click whichever generator box you want to use for that part of the protocol. And then you click on start, and hey presto, you're running the protocol because your frequencies are being delivered to the generator and the generator is delivering the frequencies to you. Then what you'd have to do is to repeat that same process again, but with the remote options and clicking on the other generators. And then clicking start. So therefore, the setting up can be worked out, okay? The running of the presets can be worked out. The adding of your biofeedback to the chain can be done with a bit of thinking things through. And so long as you have the contact plasma or remote set up in the hardware, you're essentially sorted and running your frequencies and therefore taking your therapy. So now we're having a look at setting up remotes from the software point of view. As you can see in this example, I've just got 2 generators plugged into the computer. Okay, I've got lots of laptops all over the place. They've all got different generators plugged into them, but this is just my working computer, so I'm just showing you the screen from that. So you go back to Morgellons and Lyme, go back to Morgellons and Lyme v3.0 again. As you can see at the top of the screen dump here, it shows you the address of the page we're on. Then you select remote option. Then you click on the appropriate preset, which has the letter R beside it, signifying it's remote. Then you can add your biofeedback just as you did before. Okay, because you can click on it, it will then appear in the loaded programs box below. You can then remove the Your Scan Results CUST placeholder, and then click on your biofeedback within loaded programs and use the blue arrows up and down to move it to the right place for yourself. Again, you might want to add some wobbles or feathering depending upon what it is you're trying to kill. For microbes, go for feathering. For wobbles, go for worms. That's the way in which I see it as a result of direct experience with my body. Then go back onto control, click on the overwrite box, select the available generator, and click start. Then, hey presto, that will be running for you. Okay. It's unadvisable to write people who are under the age of 7, as they haven't got a well-built immune system and all the right, appropriate bacteria and fun things they should have in their bodies. And also think carefully about TENS pad placement. That's both for scanning with Generator X as well as for delivering frequencies. Never place the TENS pads from the XM or Generator X directly on your face or above the neckline, even when doing biofeedback, because there's a possibility of damage to the thyroid, the brain, and the eyes if you were to go against this rule. So we do suggest you exercise caution when also rifing on pregnant or breastfeeding women, and I would exercise a certain quantity of caution when dealing with people who've got metal implants, and I would probably avoid rifing those who use pacemakers, in my opinion, because I'm just giving you this advice so it's more likely that you'll be safe. And now we can have a look at the chat and the Q&A and see what's coming on through. All right, Bertie Giro, I need you to explain your question a little bit more precisely for me so as I can understand what you're talking about, because I'm not quite sure what that's about. Is it safe to work on my laptop while sitting in front of the plasma lamp during the session? Absolutely. I've historically done a lot of work using both contact and plasma whilst working and sitting at my computer all day long. So yes, that's a possibility. I also do overnight rifing as well, and I place my plasma beside my bed and let that carry on blinking all night long whilst I'm wearing a sleep mask and I've got earplugs in, but I just let that run and do its thing. Would this treatment be helpful for alpha-gal syndrome? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a qualified medical practitioner, so I shouldn't really be telling you whether it can or not. My point would be that the Morgellons and Lyme protocol is specifically for reducing other pathogens which could be making your health worse. So if alpha-gal syndrome has some other pathogenic component to it, or your body has some other pathogenic component to it, it could be useful to at least go through terrain and the organisms phase of the Morgellons and Lyme protocol. Oh, there it goes, tick-borne illness. Well, basically, the more you can do to reduce pathogens in your body, full stop, would be good. Also, do your biofeedbacks, especially including high-frequency biofeedbacks with Generator X, because that might be able to tackle the actual problem much more clearly. I want to run the programs with my Rodin coils. I wouldn't know what particular, I mean, you'd have to do some electronic mathematics to work out the output of the Spooky 2 boost and how your Rodin coils will be able to handle it. But it is a hypothetical possibility because you can experiment, okay? You can experiment with that. But it's designed to be used for contact, plasma, and scalar, and I would definitely focus much more on contact and plasma, in my opinion. Is there a timetable for kids healing? Not for the under 7s, but if they're over 7, then I'm pretty sure you could follow the standard protocol. Make sure, in my opinion, that they're also having plenty of fermented foods to replace any, good bacteria in the digestive tract, and keep them healthy and hydrated and look after them with vitamins and minerals and healthy food. But yes, you should be able to just follow the same protocol and same timetable for kids over the age of 7. Will you herx with this at first? Depends upon how bad your body is. I've known people herx on terrain or on remote before. I haven't. I've known people herx on contact terrain, and I haven't, okay? But I have had some bad herxes when tackling some of the larger pathogens myself personally. I then took a day's worth of break, drank plenty of water, took some binders and some fiber, and then just went straight back to it. So it is doable. no matter what. If you have a Herxheimer reaction, then you need to take a break, then you need to get on with it. Hi there, I've had Morgellons bad Lyme come up 3 different times during scalar biofeedback. So should I run this program? It could just be that running the results of your biofeedback could be enough to knock it out. But if you can do the full protocol, you will be reducing other pathogens which are inside your body from the smallest to the largest. So that could probably help rather a lot. It might be worthwhile, well, just do also your biofeedbacks anyway on top of everything. How does anyone sit on contact for days at a time? I'm not understanding. Okay. Let me show you the software and explain what I'm talking about. Okay, stop share. Right, start share. Right, here's the software. Let's go back to the beginning. Now, Morgellons and Lyme 3, contacts. Now, if I click on, let's say, any of these, viruses A. All right, and I then go to Control, Overwrite, click the generator. Estimated total runtime, just under 4 hours. Most of these are just under 4 hours, which is why you run the contact methods twice in a 24-hour period. So what you could do is run one of them when you're chilling out, watching a couple of Netflix movies in the evening beside your computer, beside, watching TV. And you can do the other 4 hours when you're in bed. Or alternatively, you could try and do run this twice overnight. And the way in which you could do that would be to, in the programs folder, make sure the repeat chain is set to 0. Okay, when repeat chain is set to 0, then the chain will repeat. So that would be great to do overnight. And a tip for overnight usage is to use microporous tape, okay, to stick over the TENS pads to keep them onto your body, and also to wrap around the terminal where the needle fits into the sockets on the TENS pad. You run a microporous tape around that too, and then that will make it much less likely that it will actually come out. So that's essentially what can happen there. Back to Q&A. Is GenX possible? As do not think it is a pro. Yeah, regular Generator X is still a very good generator. It's the one that I've got. And you can still do all the same things with it. So by all means, regular Generator X is fine. Is it possible to go to? Yes, of course, it'll be recorded and put onto the YouTube channel shortly. So the contact or plasma treatment can be run as episodes each day for 4 days. Essentially, yes, you'll have to go through each chain twice in a 24-hour period, which is often why people during the 8 hours in bed would want to run both of them through at night and then spend the whole of the daytime on remotes. Okay, that's another way of looking at it. Can you run the protocol on remotes repeatedly through the entire sequences as it does detox so many things? It's worthwhile sticking to the timetable. It's worthwhile using the 2 or the 4 remotes as possible. There is a method of doing a set and forget remote version of the full Morgellons and Lyme protocol. That's okay, but you'll do much more good with more generators and, focusing on it and taking it more seriously. My impression of the set and forget Morgellons and Lyme protocol is that it's not as serious as doing it the direct route with the timetable as has been described here. You should have your settings tab in the software itself. Can you explain to me the fungus for nail protocol with MNL? Well, there is a funguses section in the Morgellons and Lyme protocol, okay? And you do use your fingernail clippings in the remote unit. But if you've got fungus of the nail, then you might require a different treatment. How does the remote work? Okay, this is, well, it's very odd. I didn't actually believe that remotes did any good until I'd actually tried them and put them to the test thoroughly at home myself. But there is a connection between the scalar wave created in the remote unit and your DNA. So it then communicates the message of the frequencies which are being delivered to in the remote to your body, no matter where you are in the world. So you could, in theory, be in Melbourne, Australia, with your generators somewhere in Southeast London, and you'll still be receiving frequency work that way. But remote is a lot milder than contact. It's a lot milder than doing it with plasma, and it's a lot milder than doing it with multiple remote generators. Yes, you have one generator running on remotes, and you have the other generator running on contacts. And you switch your contact generator back over to remotes during the times when you're not receiving contact frequencies. What is the remote doing? One of the benefits of running the remote when you're not taking your contact or your plasma is the fact it's doing some good to help control the pathogens, to reduce their doubling time so that they don't completely regrow during the time when you're not taking your contact session. Can you run the plasma and remote from the same PC without getting generator errors? Yes, of course you can. You use the USB bar and you plug many generators into it. Okay. Quickly stop share. Bring the presentation back up again. Okay. Is it okay to be sleeping in pure scalar or molecular scalar while my 4 generators are running remote during the night too? Easily, very much so. Whenever I'm taking plasma or contacts, I often have scalar on my working on my body at the same time, but just not when doing biofeedback. When biofeedback, I have as little interference on my body as is possible. So I move my mobile phone out of the way. I try and keep away from cables if I can, and I have the scalar turned off. It's recommended if one has Crohn's sclerosing PSC and ulcerative colitis, since it's an autoimmune disease. There are more specific things, specific treatments, I think, in the software for ulcerative colitis and possibly for PSC, which is a disease I haven't heard of myself personally. And then, so you could focus on that first, and when you've improved that side of your well-being, you could then go on to Morgellons and Lyme. Is it more effective than the, yeah, Spooky 2 is much more precise. Things like the GB4000 and MOPA, so I understand, they use carrier waves all the time, and they waste a lot of the energy doing other things, whereas you get much more specific targeted healing energy coming out of the plasma unit with Spooky 2 than you do with any other commercial plasma Rife machine, as far as I'm aware. I mean, maybe there's other ones brought out which, you know, do more, but I don't think that they do. I mean, I settled with Spooky 2 because I read about all the rest of them, and I realized it was good and more affordable. When using plasma for this treatment, where you recommend placing the bulb? Okay, well, if you got the straight tube, you know, when you're lying in bed, you can lie it across your torso. All right. Some people have it suspended above their bed. I've done that before myself. But you can also have it laying on top of the bedclothes when you're sleeping. I've actually done weird things with bits of string and resistance bands to hold it in place, but you could do it that way. If you just want to use the Fanatron bulb, then you can just have that on your nightstand and have the terminals pointing towards your body. But it also depends upon if you've got a more localized region you need to work on, in which case the Fanatron needs to be on that localized region. Are there any certain essential oils to use on scalar molecular for MNL? Not specifically, but there's nothing wrong with adding any form of healing pharmaceutical or essential oil or nutrition and herb, which you think is right for this part of your healing at the moment. Okay, harmonic wobbles. I'll quickly show you more about harmonic wobbles. Bear with me a second, please. Here we go. All right, click share screen again. So let's say we're on a fungus and mold section, a section I know well. Okay. Then I would go to programs. I would type in BFB because every single BFB I've got is under the name of BFB. I would select one of them for whatever reason. That's what I did in my demonstration there. I've clicked on it twice. So now it's appeared down there at the bottom. I then click up with the blue arrow to raise it into the place where the Your Scan Results placeholder was. I then double click Your Scan Results placeholder, and now I have my chain. So I can then go onto the Settings tab, and I can choose. Now with feathering, what this does is it makes the frequency oscillate like a sine wave around the set frequency by the set percentage of feathering. Whereas with wobbling, what it does, it's got this more of a jerky movement from one frequency to another within that same percentage range. But because it's jerky, the big wiggly worms cannot adjust their shape sufficiently quickly to not be hit and hurt by the frequency. So the way it appears to me is that wobbles are better for worms. But if you're dealing with fungus and molds, you probably want to stick with 0.02 or 0.05 feathering. And then you'll be more likely to get any of the straggly ones outside of that particular frequency. And of course, you've used your biofeedback, which means that you'll still be getting, a specific treatment for the things which it has picked up as well. Okay, so feathering for funguses and mold and candida, wobbles for worms and larger parasites, and there's all manner of different ones you can experiment with, but to the most part, you won't really want to do more than 0.02 or 0.05 or 0.02 to 0.05, or maybe at the outside 2%, 16-stage wobble when dealing with larger worms. You just don't really need to do much more than that. The rest is there for more experimental stuff and to see whether you can get results with that through experimenting. You don't need all the things which is here. Just a 0.25, 0.025, 0.02 feathering, either of those two, or the 0.05 to 0.02 wobbles. 8-stage wobble will provide more little bullets to kick their heads in, and 4 will provide fewer. Typically speaking, I would tend to go for more rather than less, because that's what I would do, because I'm aggressive that way with these things. Then click on the overwrite up in the top left-hand corner. Click on the generator you want to use, and then hey presto, you can just click start and run it. Okay. Right, back to the chat. Can you run 6 generators at once? 4 remote, 1 contact, and 1 plasma? Well, I don't think that there'll be a problem with doing that. If you got the equipment to be able to do contact and plasma, fine. But you'll be missing out on getting the extra effect of the plasma using the plasma's accessories, such as the contact, which plugs into the front of the Spooky Central, the ultrasonic, which plugs into the front of the Spooky Central, as well as, of course, the plasma tube or bulb, which you've plugged in at the back of the Spooky Central. All right, so you can experiment with that. I have not worked out from experimentation whether your understanding of using that would work better than another method. Is the graded M&L as good as this? The graded one is faster. Okay, but I don't think it will necessarily get as much. I think the graded version is for people who want rapid results and don't mind if there's something left over. I see there are multiple versions of the terrain protocol. Depending upon the equipment, yes. What do the different voltages mean? And which protocol voltage should be used when prepping the Morgellons and Lyme treatment? You don't need to worry about that because it's essentially all done for you. If you're doing Morgellons and Lyme, clicking on there, clicking on contact, you can choose the preset that you're working on at that stage. You will see that the settings has got the amplitude already set for you. Everything here is set for you. And you could just go straight to control, overwrite, and click, and it will be done. You don't have to worry about that. But if you're doing it the remote method, there'll be a different voltage on it. But essentially, like the only real reason you would want to change the voltage would be if you're physically struggling with some of the lower frequencies. Okay. And if that happens, then you can reduce this down to 10 on both and see whether that works better for you. And if that doesn't work better for you, then you can increase it or you can reduce it. All right, the most important thing is to get your frequencies into your body. Can you stagger the protocol on the remote method? Well, the purposes of the protocol is to step through all of the terrain and all of the actual components of the Morgellons Online protocol. So it is already stepped. If you want to try and progress through it faster, you could try and find a way of doing it if you wish, but that will require more technology. Does your plasma bulb turn cloudy if you run too long? No, it doesn't. What is the recommended break between each complete protocol cycle before repeating the entire protocol again? There isn't one. Listen to your body. Does your body need a break from constant frequency healing? I occasionally give my body a break, but that's not because it's recommended. It's because I think it's okay for me to take 1 or 2 days off and let the body just like settle down. But there's no hard and fast rules about that. So listen to your body. If you want to, once you've completed the entire protocol once through, if you want to take 2 or 3 days off, then take 2 or 3 days off, then start all over again. Okay, does that make sense? Right. Now let's see if there's anything in the chat section which I've missed out on. I think we've covered the most parts. Don't see settings in my select tabs. How do I get it? That's odd. So you've got preset, you got programs, you just don't have this one here. There might be, if you carry on further to the right, something which says advanced, and then you click on that, and then you can turn on a few extra tabs. I don't know if that's what you require right now. But settings tab should be the 3rd one across. There are 3 maintenance programs helpful for Morgellons Online. Which one to use? You mean Healing A, Healing B, and Healing C? All right, well, essentially just look at the list and see what you think is most important for your body right now. Is it more nutrition, in which case Healing B is better? Healing C will do other things as well. But Healing A, there's Healing A, it looks like it is much more physical. Healing B is much more nutritional. Healing C is much more, I suppose, body, skin, energetic, and sort of like gentle, positive emotions, thoughts, and feelings, as well as positive things for the body of a gentle nature. So I would say that probably if it's all physical healing you're trying to do, then Healing A is more important. If it's more a question of you're malnourished and needs help with that, then B is better, and C would be better for all the other emotional stuff you're going through. And then there's CX at the bottom there, Herxheimer Helper, in which case you just run the whole thing, and Ropeworms for those who are dealing with that particular problem. Okay, have we got any further questions in the Q&A section? I only get buzz sound when I try to review on YouTube. The video is, okay, well, sometimes YouTube has some problems, and I do apologize on behalf of YouTube for that, even though I shouldn't have to apologize on behalf of YouTube, but I will, because that would be a nice thing to do. Okay, has everyone worked out now that this can be that this is doable and the process is relatively straightforward when you think it through? Is it possible to completely get rid of Lyme via Spooky System? That would be a medical inquiry of a nature that I would not feel comfortable talking about, because I can't sit here and promise something which, I mean, like, your body is going to be different to my body is different to somebody else's body, my condition is different to somebody else's condition, and so on and so forth. My existing treatments are also different to somebody else. It's very difficult for one to say that you can completely get rid of the entire disease and all the parts of it with any tool of healing. But the tool of healing we've got here is actually pretty powerful and quite good. Well, that's the YouTube channel. You know, off the top of my head, I don't actually know. So we could just have a quick look and see. I'll just do a quick search on YouTube and see whether we can just find Spooky 2 there. Yeah, Spooky 2 Rife, which is at Spooky 2 Rife with a capital S and a capital R, all one word, appears to be the channel you need to have a look at for a lot of their stuff, including the testimonials. I presume it'll be coming up there. Yeah, I think that's the one. Are there any programs you can recommend to get rid of red bite skin spots? Oh. I think it depends upon what's causing it. I would actually suggest, if you got Generator X, to scan the area with pads either side of where the red thing is, okay, to see whether the biofeedback scan can then target what's inside the spots, and then treat with that using both either contact or plasma with remote support, or just or as much as your technology as you can. But it's a question of getting the right particular frequency for that one particular problem. Now, if there's toxicity in there as well, I think it would be best to just work on the pathogen. So doing a biofeedback scan of each of the major spots would be important. And then if you can also run any other frequencies associated with the skin, then that will be very useful as well. All right. Is there any other question you've got specifically for Morgellons and Lyme, or something you want to ask me personally about how one could use Spooky 2 in a more effective manner? And also, do you all now understand how the Morgellons and Lyme protocol operates? Because that's essentially what I really wanted to try and bring home to you guys. Okay, so far it's looking good. Which scan do you suggest, general or refined? Refined programs is what you do when you've got a frequency set and you want to make it more accurate for your body. So essentially which essentially you can do with things like, I don't know, the Candida frequencies or the bacteria frequencies and other things. So let's say you got a disease, all right, you then grade scan, then you refine programs on the results of your grade scan of all the things which you think you're struggling with, and it will return to you the significant frequencies. The refined programs will make it much more accurate and precise. But if you're doing a biofeedback scan for your body for Morgellons and Lyme, then it would have to be the general one. Some people might also want to consider using the high frequency scan instead, but the general one is essentially would be the most positively used. Okay, you could try and oscillate between like a couple of weeks on general, a couple of weeks on high frequency, and see which one resonates best with your body, and see whether your body is getting rid of more toxicity one way or another. I thought the central contact worked differently than a generator contact, so which would be best? It depends whether you want to get the power from the plasma. If you want to get the power from the plasma, you use the Spooky central things in order to make the power from the plasma more powerful. All right, so you use what you've got, you try, but if you're using Spooky Central, then use Spooky Central Contact alongside the plasma and alongside the ultrasonic in order to give your pathogens a damn good going to. Right, I have another question. My wife had a BFB come back with Munchausen syndrome. How can an electrical device find a mental issue? Depends what's causing the mental issue. Is it pathogenic, for instance? Okay, or is it something, or is it there a frequency in the person, which actually is the frequency associated with the Munchausen syndrome? But on the other hand, sometimes I've done reverse lookup for on the results of my own basic biofeedbacks. And it's told me I've had diseases in parts of the body I don't have because I'm a man. All right, so you don't worry about reverse lookup. What you do is you think that's a frequency that needs work, therefore we're going to run that on a killing shell, because that's essentially what's required, okay? Or you could use the healing shell as well, or alternatively, which would be softer on the kidneys. But, you know, the killing shell is good if you've got something wrong in your body, because what you could have there is a pathogen which has the same kind of frequency as Munchausen syndrome. So you don't actually have Munchausen syndrome. You've got a pathogen with a frequency which happens to be of the same type or harmonic as the Munchausen syndrome itself. How can you use this with a client? What I would suggest is that you rent out a Hiwi Microgen to your client and say, use this. All right, I'll load it up with your frequencies and your biofeedbacks. Then you come back twice a week and we'll do fresh biofeedbacks, and you can then carry on being treated via contacts using the Hiwi Microgen. Okay, that would be a good way of doing it. In fact, I think that one of the benefits of the Hiwi Microgen is because people who are therapists and need to send someone away with the right frequencies for them, the therapist can do all the remote work in their home office or wherever. But then the client can then do the contact work on the Hiwi Microgen. So that would be the best way of doing that, in my humble opinion. Can you use plasma contact or ultrasound without using the plasma tube? I think the question there is why. Because the contact is not the frequencies from the generator, it is the Spooky Central frequency specific to allow the plasma to do more damage to your pathogens and work on your body better. So there's no point in just treating with that, really. You'll be best to treat with the plasma. And as for the ultrasound, will put frequency into the body, but it would also be a harmonic specific to the ultrasound device. So it's best to use plasma firstly, and then add other things such as the Spooky 2 contact and the Spooky 2 ultrasound, and see whether that really helps the problem. I have heard high power BFB is better than BFB. Is that right? You mean high frequency biofeedback? And in what way better? Now, there are some particular pathogens which live in the high frequency scan range, and there's some pathogens which live in the regular general scan frequency range, and there'll be an overlap between the two because of harmonics. The thing to do is to work on finding out through experience which one seems to work best for your body. I've had some times when I've had some things clogging up my digestive tract, and the high frequency biofeedback scan was the one that knocked it out good and proper, but the regular one didn't. But on the other hand, I've had other pathogens which have worked much better with the regular biofeedback rather than using the high frequency. HEAWEA.com is the Spooky 2 website which has Microgen on it. The Microgen device is like a very small, portable, battery rechargeable Spooky 2. Okay, it's a simple device, but it can do the vast majority of the full protocol. And there's ways of using patches to get the full Morgellons and Lyme protocol into the software for the Hiwi Microgen, so that you can then get your clients treated with that. Wobble or feathering also good for plasma, definitely. I saw options to run healing or killing dual mode. Is there a benefit to run this with results of my biofeedback scan instead of regular non-dual? Quite possibly. The whole thing about dual is it runs everything faster, but I don't think it does it at the same power. So therefore, you may be missing out on some extra killing ability. And also, like, you've also got to think about whether you're herxing too much on doing too much killing all in one go. I have used dual before, and it can be good, and I have had some good experiences with it, but it's very hard for me to say precisely which one would provide you with wellness faster. Okay, next question. I find that biofeedback can pick up frequencies of the body. My daughter works in a hospital. A dog with a black plague came in and she was working on with safety equipment. When she did biofeedback, 2 days later, one of the results was black plague. We realized she picked up the frequency of the disease, not the disease itself. Possibly, or alternatively, she has some variety of strong immunity to whatever that black plague was, and she was actually carrying the pathogens. Okay. What are the DH frequencies? Oh, they're great fun. They are. They are experimental frequency sets that were derived via I think a guy who did dowsing, and he worked out that there's some frequencies which just seem to work on the energetic body and a few other things. So that's quite a fun database to work through. What does Square H-bomb do? Okay, that provides individual frequency spikes and lots of little square wave spikes and another big spike. Okay, so what that does is a lot of killing and a lot of healing. It is suitable for both killing and healing, and it's quite effective. And for those of you who want to experiment on that, some people get great results from it. I personally stick with the standard killing and healing shells because I just want to get straight frequency to my body for the particular thing that I'm dealing with. Why would you recommend the Hiwi Microgen and not the Generator X to take home? Because if you're dealing with a client who has brain fog, they will want a device they can use simply and easily. And with the Hiwi Microgen, you just plug in your contact cable and you turn it on. And that's pretty much all you do, apart from setting the power setting right, that there's nothing else to do to it for the client. But if the client can understand the complexities of the Spooky 2 software, you could get the frequencies loaded up into the Generator X for them, and then they can have that as well, or alternatively. But also for your clients, they might want to save some money, not have to buy a Generator X as well as everything else. In contact mode, where would you place the TENS pads? Right wrist and left angle for most things. Okay, outside of the right wrist, inside of left angle, that's the best way of doing it. All right, if you struggle to download the software, contact customer support because they'll probably know more about the technology of the Windows computer than I would. Okay, where can I get a copy of this recording? As I say, I think it'll be on the YouTube channel. If you ask Zara nicely, she'll also copy and paste it into the Facebook chat, so you'll be able to see it there at some point in time. But it should be going out there again. Is there any quick points you want me to go over briefly? Can I load any frequencies to the Hiwi device for the client to use, even BFB scans, for example? Yes, of course, it will translate it into a harmonic, but it will definitely work, including for the BFB scans, okay? Can you do killing without plasma? Yes, you can. You use contact or remotes, but essentially contact will be better than remotes because it's faster. Okay, but if you want to do serious killing and get all the things inside the areas where the electric currents might not reach, then plasma is your baby. Okay, plasma is your go-to. And I recommend plasma above anything else for hard pathogen control. If you've got cancer, Morgellons and Lyme, if you've got something persistent which is screwing with you, then plasma is a good thing to do. When we run terrain protocol, can we still run healing on another remote or use pure scalar? When you're running it on contact, there's nothing wrong with using scalar as well. You can definitely run things on remote and use scalar too. I don't see why you shouldn't. Whenever I'm doing a contact session, I will often have 3 or 4 remotes going doing other things for different stuff. It's just when you're doing biofeedback that you need to have your software set up so that it pauses the other generators so your body doesn't get any interference. Okay? But fortunately, I can Click on stop share. We can go back to share screen. I can click on the software, click on share. No, it's not that, it's not that. It's a tab I can't reach from here. Oh dear, just bear with me a second. Yeah, system tab. There's a checkbox on system tab, which says pause generators during biofeedback. As long as that's checked and you're doing it all off the same computer, you shouldn't really have a worry or a problem with that. Is it common for herxing when you have had previous injury? You can get a herx under a wide variety of different conditions. It depends upon what your body is about, really. Okay, I mean, as Herxheimer reactions do just happen, and it is part of being on the journey of healing for them to happen. All right. Yeah, Mirror, you can't load any frequencies onto MirrorMate because that is just a straight PMF device. So that's not done. You know, it's a different type of animal. Okay. What's the difference between hunt and kill and scan and run? Hunt and kill takes a certain number of frequencies and then refines those frequencies, and then it does the killing on the refined frequencies, and then it refines again and carries on refining the same 10 things, or the same however many things you have told it to look out for. Scan and run does a fresh scan every time. So hunt and kill is for a specific dodgy pathogen you've got, which you want to try and sort out. And it's just that one thing, which happens to be the one you really want to sort out. So therefore you tackle it with hunt and kill. But with scan and run, it's whatever it picks up every single time it does a fresh scan after each run through. I have done a video on the cancer protocol before. It's quite old. But yeah, if I'm asked to do another one by Spooky, I'll be more than happy to do that for you. Okay. Had a quick power outage last night and Generator X shut down. My XMs did not. Generator X programs froze. Is this normal, and do I have to shut everything down? Can I just restart Generator X? You're dealing with modern technology. Shutting everything down and starting all over again is a good way of doing it. As long as you've taken a mental note of what preset you're on, you can just double click on that preset when you're in the control tab, and it should start running from there. Okay. All right. Anything else? BFB with baseline. With current software, what scan button do you hit? Okay. Stop share. Share screen. Okay, so let's have a look on, let's click on the home key, get back to the beginning, biofeedback, Generator X, general biofeedback scan with baseline, override select, and then it's pretty simple. And if you look on the bottom right-hand side of the screen, it's got the baseline number thing down there. So you just have to click on scan, which is down here, and you should be able to rock and roll. I don't tend to do that much with baseline myself. I just tend to go straight in. Right. Regarding the microgen, can you download the client's frequencies according to the schedule they're on, in which they do the 2 to 4 days, and then get the next stage loaded on and so on? You'd have to do them one at a time, because there isn't, as far as I can tell, on microgen, a way of having 4 different presets which you can do and tell it to do one, then do the other and do the other. It won't do that. It's got to be each section. All right, and then coming back to you every 2 days or 4 days, I suppose. Do you have any experience of recording frequencies from a cat's hair on an audio? No, I haven't done that. I haven't yet. No, I've done a lot of experimenting, okay, but I haven't yet done things with audio and cat's hair as of yet. What does the Analyze Plus button do? The Analyze and Analyze Plus buttons is when you're trying to analyze the existing biofeedback which you have done from a different point of view. Under the Detect menu on the control page, which is like the middle of the page and slightly down, I've got it in blue here. You can see it's got angle, current, and angle and current. So when you got your results, you can then open it up in angle, open it up in current, open it up in angle and current, and you can save it in all three. And then you can put that into one singular biofeedback chain and then remove duplicates. And then you've got a more cohesive scan to deliver to your body using aspects of angle, current, and angle and current together. So I often cheat myself and only do my biofeedbacks with angle and current if I'm pressed for time, or I just don't feel like it. It depends. Yeah. If you've got different versions, the scan button will be in different places. How do I know if I have the most recent version of the software? You check on the downloads page. All right, downloads page of spooky2-mal.com. And then you just download it. And if you do just download it, it should still be able to keep all your biofeedbacks in place as well as everything else. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know what the latest version is. I've just been quite happy with the one I've got. But, you know, just literally go straight to spooky2-mal.com and go to the downloads page. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you've got a newer one or an older one. The more new it is, the fewer bugs it'll have, the more effective it'll be. You know, it's okay. Don't worry. But if you need the most up-to-date one, then get it. Does it work well on Windows 11? I don't know. I don't have Windows 11. I'm still a primitive Fred Flintstone using Windows 10. When do I use heal or kill instead of heal or kill alone? If you're delivering frequencies to your body, hang on, please bear with me 1 second, please. What the fuck? That's not in the house. I'll make it on the roof. Right. Okay, I apologize for that. Run from the treatment. Well, that's one of the reasons why you do contact right wrist, left ankle for starts off. But it depends upon the pathogen itself. Some of them are very mobile and do move around the body, and some of them don't. If you've got experience with worms, you might feel them moving around inside your body. But if you're treating right wrist to left ankle with the contacts, you're less likely to get a problem. No, not left ankle to right ankle. Well, actually, if you did that, then you're only working on the lower parts of the body. You're not working on the whole thing. Right wrist to left ankle does the vast majority of the body, and I've even had cleansing of the sinuses as a result of that. So therefore, it can go in all kinds of different places. I've also had improvement to the prostate through treating right wrist, left ankle as well. So that's a very good way of doing nearly anything. Okay. Right, is that nearly everything? Windows 10 11 come with a monthly default updates. Right. There is a PDF I can try and show you. Just bear with me a second. I'll see if I can find it in my Google Drive. Bear with me a second. In which we've actually got an image of the body sites. But I've got to try and find where the friendly thing is. Bear with me a second. No, I can't find it off the top of my head, but I can try and find it on Google. Bear with me a second, please. Right, just Googling for TENS pad placement on Spooky 2. We should be able to get some images coming up shortly. Bear with me a second. Yeah, okay, there we go. So if we get back onto Zoom, go back to share screen, and we go to there. All right, this is literally something you can access on Google, and it's spooky2-mal.com/blog, and then TENS pad placement, and it shows you where they all are for various different ailments, okay? Lower back, sciatica, upper back, elbow, hip and buttock, and so on and so forth. Now, to the most part, when you're doing your biofeedback, and especially general biofeedback, you're actually treating with the TENS pads Regenerator X either side of your waist, because that's where most of the pathogens are. If you're doing the pulse method using the XM generator for biofeedback, you'll have the pulse clip either on your index finger or on the lobe of your ear, as well as TENS pads right wrist to left ankle and lying very still for a long period of time. Okay. It takes a bit of common sense to work out which one you prefer and which one is best for you at that particular point in time. Okay. But yes, you can, you know, it is searchable for you to find the places for the various different biofeedback, not for biofeedback, but for treatment, whether it's elbow, arm, whether it's the lower back, whether it's a sciatica or whatever. But biofeedback, when to run, heal or kill. Okay, you tend to run on a killing shell when you want to make sure there's extra, you know, little frequencies brought about by the saw wave, because the saw wave provides extra harmonics, which can do more killing and is much more abrasive to the individual pathogens. But also the healing shell will also kill pathogens, but without creating the extra harmonics. And also, if you've got kidney issues, it's recommended to use the healing shell when you're doing pathogen killing as well. All right, because you don't want to add an extra load to the body. I've read some research that PEMF is good to use it for the lymph system to vibrate out any hiding pathogens. Have I found that too? I haven't used PEMF all that much because I get more targeted results with plasma. PEMF is good. It has its own specific frequency limitations. Plasma, on the other hand, goes up to 3.5 megahertz, I understand, and therefore can be used for a heck of a lot more and more effectively. Okay. Have we covered everything now? I think we pretty much have. Well, no, thank you for your time, okay?